Hey folks, we're about to head into the last chunk of content in our class. And today's lecture marks sort of a transition between very small things and big things. And I think probably many of you are going to be excited that we're moving into big things finally. One of the projects that you've been working on in this class is the terrarium lab, and you're growing critters in jars and seeing how they interact with each other. And that lab activity is actually directly related to this last chunk of our class when we finally get to move out of cellular processes and start looking at critters and how they behave and why they do what they do and how we ended up with the diversity that we see around us. Talking about evolution is it's a weird thing to talk about, and it's the first thing I want to say. And as we introduce this topic, is it's really important to understand the scientific biological definition of evolution, because that's what we're talking about in this class. And I think one of the things that I always want to make sure everybody's really clear on is that the scientific definition of evolution, biological evolution, is something that is a theory, a scientific theory that is supported by massive amounts of evidence from many, many different studies and different disciplines. And in fact, there's a geneticist back in the 60s, Theodosius Dobzhansky, who said nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. And that sort of points to the critical nature of this concept for understanding how the world is functioning around us. And yet, I want to make sure that everybody is really clear and cozy with the fact that evolution is not counter or oppositional. Learning about evolution does not come at a cost to any sort of faith that you may have. We talked about in the very beginning of the class, when we talked about the process of science, we made it very clear that the process of science can only be used to study certain kinds of questions. And there are other kinds of questions of faith, that you just don't use the process of science to study those things. It's different. And I want to be really clear that what we're going to talk about when we're learning about evolution is very distinct from faith, and they can coexist, because you can learn about science and the processes that we see and also have your faith. And that, I love that part. So we are going to talk this first lecture. We're going to do kind of an overview, and we're not going to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty details, although it probably will feel like that to you. It'll feel like there's a lot of details coming at you, but we're going to save a lot of the mechanisms for how this happens for after exam number 3. And we'll get into those specific processes. We'll study them a lot. But today we're going to look more at defining evolution, looking at how Mendel and his research on genetics and heredity that we've been like deep in learning about, how that informs our understanding of evolution and relatedness. So we're going to start out with some definitions and then get to talking about the fun stuff.